Jai Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jai Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna. Om Jnanatamanandasya Jananjana Shalakaya Chaksuhunmanidamina Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangumlam Jayati Girim Yakripa Tamaham Bande Sri Gurum Dinatarim. Vanchakalpatirubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhahevacha Patitanam Padanibhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha. Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktarinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. It's quite intimidating sitting up here in front of such an august assembly of Vaishnavas, especially so many that are my senior. But, Prabhupada would sometimes do that when he was present with us. He would turn to a devotee and say, okay, now you give the class. Huh, what, who, me? Sitting right in front of Prabhupada, you can imagine. So, with a straw of the street in my mouth and folded hands, I'll attempt to say a few words glorifying Narottama Dasa Thakur. I will admit to being enthusiastic to do so because the Vaishnavacharyas, this is a subject that's near and dear to me. And of all the Vaishnavacharyas, the first Vaishnavacharya biographies I started with was Narottama Dasa Thakur some 25-something years ago. So I enjoy very much doing this, and I'm grateful for this opportunity. Narottama Dasa Thakur, of course, the song we just sang, Ye Anilo Premadana, a mood of separation from the Vaishnava. This was written by Narottama. Interestingly enough, this was written in that very mood because his dear and closest friend, Ramchandra Kaviraj, had just passed away, and this was the song he wrote in that mood of separation from Ramchandra Kaviraj, and understood by many to be the last song that he wrote before he himself departed. I will say right up front, we could sit here for 2 days and speak about Narottama. There's endless amounts of subject matter to be covered, and I'll make no effort to cover everything. And if I miss your particular favorite pastime, well, that's just an opportunity for you to read up on that and share that with others during the day. We should understand that the observances of the appearances and disappearance of the Vaishnavas, they're meant to be an intrusion into our regular life. They're meant to kind of upset the regular routine that we have. Usually we would have a Bhagavatam class, but we set that aside and speak about them. And we should carry that with us through the day. It shouldn't you just, okay, I had 45, 55 minutes in the morning, that's good. We should speak about them during the day. We should take that with us and try and appreciate the mood. This is the activity and responsibility of a Vaishnava, to glorify other Vaishnavas. Bhaktivinoda Thakur speaks very strongly against prajalpa, which offends other devotees. We sometimes see in our modern world that this is a great habit and a enthusiastically pursued pastime to criticize Vaishnavas. We should be very, very cautious of doing such. The detriment and destruction to our spiritual life is foretold in so many places. So in that mood, I would like to offer this prayer to Narottama Dasa Thakur, written by Govinda Ghosh Thakur. It's 6 verses glorifying Narottama Dasa Thakur. Glory, glory, glory to Narottama Dasa Thakur, a great king of spiritual love and devotion, a king whose prime minister is the youthful Ramchandra Kaviraj. King Narottama's crown is studded with the jewels of ecstatic spiritual love. On his body are the ornaments of devotional ecstasies. In Keturigram, he sits on a royal throne. The devotees themselves are his royal assembly. Day after day, he studies, discusses, and lectures on Srimad Bhagavatam and the books of Rupa and Sanatana Goswamis. In the glistening nectar pastimes of the divine couple of Sri Radha and Madhava, he finds the sweetest of bliss. Tasting the nectar of Sankirtan, he becomes wild with bliss. He does not consider what is materially pious and what is materially impious. Frightened, he flees from non-devotional yoga, charity, and vows. In the presence of fruitive actions and impersonal speculations, he cries. The treasure of devotion described in the Bhagavad scriptures is the great goal he strives to attain. Seeing the impure ideas of the followers of Shankha, Mimamsa, materialistic logic, and other non-devotional philosophies, he burns in unhappiness. He stays far away from the thieves that are the opponents of devotional service. He will not come near them. To the poor, fallen people, he gives the treasure of devotional service. Only to Govinda Das does he not give that treasure. Only Govinda Das has been cheated. I think we can easily substitute our names in there, feeling ourselves cheated from the association of Narottama. One other concluding prayer here. I take refuge at the lotus feet of Lokanath Prabhu, who is completely indifferent to the pains and pleasures of this material world. His mercy was fully realized by the great scholar, his disciple, Narottama Dasa Thakur. All glories, all glories, all glories to Narottama Dasa Thakur, the beloved disciple of Lokanath Goswami. How the illustrious Narottam took his birth in the house of Krishnananda Dutt, the elder brother of Sri Purushottam, will be discussed here. If we're going to talk about the pastimes of Narottam, we must predate ourselves a bit. As we know, Narottam was what we would commonly refer to nowadays as the second generation of devotees from Mahaprabhu. Mahaprabhu made a special notation of his future coming. One day, Mahaprabhu, Nityananda, Haridas, Vakreshwar Pandit, Gadadhar, they were going along the banks of the river, the Padma River. They were going village to village doing Sankirtan. And at this point, Mahaprabhu stopped. And across the river, he looked to the town of Keturi. And he cried out, "Oh, Narottama! Oh, Narottama!" and began to shiver in ecstasy. And Nityananda turned to Haridas and said, "Who's Narottama? There's nobody with this name Narottama. Who's this Narottama?" Of course, Nityananda knows everything. He's the super soul in the heart of everyone. But he's engaging in this pastime. Lord Chaitanya turned to the devotees. He said, in the future, one personality named Narottama will make his birth in the town of Keturi. And he will be greatly instrumental in spreading the mission of Krishna consciousness throughout. So in this way, they continued on with their kirtan. But before they left, Mahaprabhu stepped down to the Padma River. And he entered into the Padma River. And as he entered into that river, the river itself began to churn. And waves, I mean, you don't usually see big waves in a river. Waves were coming, and it was churning and becoming very active and flowing over the banks. And all of a sudden, the personality of the Padma River, Mother Padma herself, manifested in front of Mahaprabhu with folded hands. Said, "My Lord, what would you desire of me?" And he manifested from himself a youth of golden hue and placed that in her care and said, "You hold on to this. This is Prema Bhakti. And you keep this until such time Narottama steps into your waters, and then you place it with him." Mother Padma folded her hands and said, "Yes, my Lord, I will do this, but just one question. How will I know who is Narottama? When that person enters your waters and you react in the same way you've reacted to me, that will be Narottama." "Yes, my Lord." The river sedated again. She manifested back into the waters, and the kirtan party continued on. As they say, the wheel of time turned until finally, in the month of Magh, one beautiful child was born in Keturi. The mother was so happy. Father was Krishnananda Dutt. They were so blessed to have this child. And he was born at all the auspicious times, all the wonderful circumstances and everything were there at his birth. And it was said that there was an effulgence emanating from the delivery room that happiness just swelled with this effulgence. Everyone was so satisfied. The whole village of Keturi was very, very purified. Just felt like something wonderful was taking place, as if they were cleansed of all the misgivings that may have been there. There was kirtan going on. The holy name was being chanted. Everyone rushed to the house of Krishnananda Dat when they heard that the child had been born to bring different types of gifts. Krishnananda Dat, of course, he was the king of the area. He was the local magistrate and very, very wealthy, nice devotee, and devotional family going back. And so he was very much liked and appreciated, and everyone brought so many gifts like that. And he received everyone very nicely and accepted their gifts and their blessings, and everyone was so satisfied that Narottama had taken his birth. All of the different qualities of Mahatma were seen on his form, and the astrologer came and did the calculations and said, oh, they began to look at what would be the name, the proper syllables, and he said, oh, this child's name should be Narottama. Naro meaning human being, and Uttam, the most perfect. So he will be the most perfect of all persons, and he will be responsible for bringing great happiness to the world. Of course, the parents didn't exactly at the time knew what that meant, but they were so satisfied. Krishnananda Dat gave great charity to everyone, and in this way, Narottama became the most valuable jewel of the entire village. Everyone loved him so much. Everyone was so happy. His mother, Narayani, was so satisfied to see everybody love her child. That's all a mother wants, right? Right? When my daughter moved to the other side of the world, the only thing my wife and I wanted was that everybody would like her as much as we did. And everybody does, so we're happy. But this is the desire of the mother. So Mother Narayani was so happy that everyone loved her child, and her joy knew no bounds. And constantly she looked upon the jewel-like face of her son, and she was so grateful for his good fortune, and all of these wonderful, auspicious things were there. So, in due course of time, the Annapashad Samskar was to take place, the grain ceremony for the child. Krishnananda Dat made a great festivity, banana leaves and trees on all the pillars, and pots of scented water with rice flower designs and all types of mangoes. It's just like we see here, such a festive mood. And he arranged everything so nicely and invited all the different types of personalities to do kirtan and sing glories and recite verses, and all the Brahmins and all the local villages. Everyone came, and they had the ceremony was performed there, and everyone was so happy. And now came the time to feed the grains to Narottama. And the Narottama sitting on his mother's lap, and Krishnananda Dat took the silver spoon with a jeweled handle and took the bits of rice and put it to Narottama's mouth, and Narottama spit it out. Well, this was highly unusual. The Purohit looked and, anyway, let's do this again. Okay. They put the Narottama, spit it out a second time. Well, they'd never seen this before. This is highly unusual. Third time. Okay. Third time, Narottama wouldn't take grains. At this point, Mother Narayani is just crying tears. If her son doesn't take grains, how will he nourish? And if he doesn't get nourished, how will he grow? And if he doesn't grow, her life will be useless. And Krishnananda Dasa, he's more than a little bit embarrassed. I mean, his son's not, and this is going on, and he's got all the guests here, and what to do. And one Brahmin sitting in the crowd, he said that not to worry. He was a Vaishnava. He said, I think I can solve the problem. Go to the kitchen, cook fresh rice, offer that rice to the Vishnu deity, and bring that prasad. So they did that. Kirtan went on while this was going on. Rice doesn't cook in a minute. I mean, it's not like they had Uncle Ben's minute rice or anything, So they made all the preparations. They offered the bhoga and brought the prasad and sat down, and the father took, and with a little bit of hesitation but great faith in the words of the Brahmins, he fed the rice Narottama. Narottama made it very nicely. Everyone cheered, yay! Narottama took the prasadam, and Krishnananda Dat saw this for what it was, and he said, I will make a proclamation that my son will never be fed anything but Krishna prasadam. So even from a very early age, Narottama was engaging everyone in devotional service like this. So In due course of time, Narottam began his studies, and he was continuing on like this. And everyone was just so amazed at how quickly he learned. The villagers all had wonderful things they would say. Some of the things, how is it possible that this boy can learn so quickly? Maybe he's an incarnation of God. Others would look at the adorable boy and they would say, oh, just one glance at Narottam's face is sufficient to cool my mind and chase away all miseries. And someone else would say, from every angle of vision, this prince is so beautiful. And someone else would say, oh, I've never seen such a gorgeous boy. So in this way, Narottam was glorified throughout the entire town. One day, as Narottam was a young man, he had a dream. He was sleeping at night, and Nityananda came to him in a dream. The description is given just as in Chaitanya Charitamrita. It describes how Nityananda appeared to Krishnadas Kaviraj. He was so beautiful in blue dhoti and devotees fanning him and the red, just everything so wonderful and fancy turban and ankle bells jingling. Nityananda said, Narottam, wake up. Go to the Padma River, for you will find all good fortune there. Disappeared. Dream is over. Narottam woke up. He thought, wow, that was amazing. Okay, go to the river. All right. Well, it's still very early in the morning. Anyway, he got up and he went out of the house very quietly, went down to the river. When he approached the river, he offered his obeisances at the bank of the Padma River, and then he entered into the waters. As he entered into the waters, the Padma River began to churn, and the waves began to go, and the river began to flow out of its banks, and Mother Padma herself manifested with this golden hue and embraced Narottam and placed it upon him. Narottam was described at his birth as Shamvarna, a darkish, kind of a bluish hue. But now with the touch and the contact of this golden form, he became known as Gauravarna, this golden effulgence. And with the reception of this gift, he staggered to the bank of the Padma and collapsed under a tree, fainted. Meanwhile, back at the house, so the family wakes up. Krishnananda Dutt gets up, does his morning duties, goes on like this, and then Mother Narayani gets up, and they notice Narottam hasn't gotten up yet. Okay, he's sleeping in a little bit. He's a young boy, let him sleep, no big deal. So the morning comes along, and still Narottam hasn't gotten. So Mother goes to the door, knocks on the door. Naro, time to get up. Naro. So she opens the door and looks in. Narottam's gone. Narottam, where's my Narottam? She runs into the Krishnananda. Where's Narottam? He's not here. What? Narottam's not there? They begin to look all around the house. Maybe he's hiding. They look in the closets here and there. They call the guards and they look all around and they're in a complete panic. Narottam's nowhere to be found. What could have happened? It's early in the morning. He couldn't have gone anywhere. Gather the guards. And Krishnananda sends them out. Look in all the 10 directions. Find my son. So the guards go out and look in this way, and in due course of time they return. No one has seen anything. But one guard hasn't come back, and he returns a bit later. He says, I saw one boy that kind of looked like Narottam, but not really so much. He was on the banks of the Padma. Take us there immediately, Krishnananda says. So Narayani and Krishnananda, they go with the guards, and they go, and a mother, you can't fool a mother, right, ladies? You know your son when you see them. She says, no, my son. And she ran over to him and she sees, and he's completely unconscious. He's got this golden hue. He doesn't look the same. And she takes him on her lap and she's hugging him, and tears are falling from her face onto his face. And this wakes him up and he comes to consciousness. Nara, what happened? He has no words to explain what has overcome him, except that he has now got this intense love in his heart for Lord Chaitanya, which is manifested in full depth. He doesn't have any idea how to express this to his mother and father. So he just, I came to the river, I fell in, and I became a little, I'm okay. Krishnananda picks him up, they carry him back to the house, they put him in the bed, and, all the time he's experiencing all the full symptoms of love of God, in and out, coming and going. The mother and father are so worried, they call the local soothsayer, the Muslim doctor, and he looks at him and says, he's inhabited by some ghost. We have to do this, that, and the other. Narottama dismisses all of them. Oh, I'm fine, leave me alone. Anyway, the incident passes. Narottama's education continues. And mother and father begin to talk one day. He said, Naro's a fine young man now. We've educated him. It's time for him to be married. We should think of a suitable wife for him. So, they begin to, he says, I'm going to eventually give up my kingly duties, and someone's going to have to take over. Naro is the prince. So we should begin to think who will be a suitable bride for him. In the meantime, Narottama is experiencing this love of God that he just is trying to come to terms with and not fully understanding it. And he hears his mother and father talking about marrying him, and he has absolutely no interest in material life or pursuit of anything like this, and doesn't want anything to do with it. And, he's completely apathetic to anything to do with the court and the kingdom and the palace, and he's just not interested. So, they decide that, our son is beginning to manifest some very renounced, qualities. He might just run off. We have to put a guard on him. So they arrange for one guard to always be there. He's not like a guard, but, he's kind of like, oh, I'm your friend, but he's really got his eye on him. So, in this way, he's trapped in his home. And it says that he considered his home to be no greater than a prison. No greater than a prison. So every day he would plead and beg and really try to, understand a way to get the Lord's mercy. His body would become covered with the dust from rolling around on the ground and raising his arms and begging, Gauranga Nitaya Advaita! Gauranga Nitaya Advaita! His mother and father were completely confused by this. All he would plead is, Gauranga, save me from this hell. He didn't consider this to be anything. In the meantime, Gauranga's, glories are spreading everywhere. There was one old Brahmin that lived in Thakur. His name was Narottama Dasa. And Narottama Dasa was a genuine servant of Mahaprabhu. He knew all of Mahaprabhu's Navadvip Leela pastimes. And because he was very powerful as a Brahmin, he was never checked. And so he had complete free range to come and go. And he would come regularly to the home of Krishnananda Das and visit with Narottama. And Narottama welcomed him very much. Narottama was well-trained, and he would respect him, touch his feet, give him garland, give him a place to sit. And then he would eagerly inquire, because he knew he was a devotee of Chaitanya, please, tell me the pastimes of Mahaprabhu. Please, tell me what you know. So in this way, Narottama Dasa would narrate the pastimes of the Lord in all three parts. He would glorify the transcendental activities of Nityananda and Advaita with Mahaprabhu. He would tell how the wood would change and the stone would melt just by hearing the singing of the Lord. He explained about the life histories of Gadadhar and Srinivas and Vakreshwar Pandit and Murari Gupta and Kashishwar and Lokanath and all these different personalities, Sanatan Rupa. And he explained all of this to Narottama. And Narottama, as he heard this, it was like he was a completely thirsty man drinking at water for the very first time. And he was just so satisfied, so happy. He just couldn't realize his great fortune. He was so wonderful. And he just wished if there was some way I could leave this body, which is trapped and imprisoned here. Now, during this time, Narottama Dasa began to explain very deeply the qualities of one person, Srinivas. Now, most of us, when we think of Srinivas, Narottama, and Shyamananda, we think they're all through the same age. Actually, Srinivas was considerably older than the other two. Shyamananda and Narottama were very close in age, but Srinivas was, I think, like 18 years, 20 years older. So he was already a well-known personality. So Narottama Dasa would tell all about the qualities, the activities, and the life story of Srinivas. And with this, within the heart of Narottama, developed this great affection for Srinivas, to become associated with Srinivas. So it mentions that he was floating in an ocean of tears in separation from Srinivas and constantly questioning, when will I get the company of Srinivas? When will I get his company? So he continued to daily listen to the stories from Krishnananda, these wonderful pastimes of Mahaprabhu and the Lord. Sometimes his mind would be so disturbed he couldn't sleep, he wouldn't eat, his mother and father becoming increasingly difficult, and increasingly he's feeling tortured. He's actually feeling himself in a tortured condition. So one day he has another dream. This is his second dream. He fell asleep at night, and in this dream, Lord Gauranga appeared before him. Had splendid beauty that could not be compared to even the finest of gold. Couldn't be compared to any type of lightning. Couldn't be compared to anything within this world. His beauty was so wonderful. Beautiful curling hair hanging down his back. Earrings that shone brightly. Lotus eyes that would trap even Cupid. A smiling face that would defeat the effulgence of the moon. Beautiful tilak on his forehead that would capture one's breath just by seeing it. Graceful hands that went all the way down to his knees. A broad, beautiful chest. Beautiful jeweled garlands hanging around his conch-like neck. A deep navel. A thin waist. Defeated even that of a lion. His knees looked like banana trees. His feet were more attractive than the finest of lotuses. He was so gorgeous in his three folds of his cloth. And observing the beauty of Narottama in this way, Narottama shed tears and fell at the feet of the Lord and grasped his feet within his dream. Placing his foot on Narottama's head, pretty valuable there, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said in a very sweet voice, "Oh Narottama, look up at me. I cannot bear your tears. Do not worry. Go straight away to Vrindavan. There you will meet Lokanath. He will become your guru. He will give you the nectar of the Maha Mantra. I have plans for you how you will serve me in the future." And then Gauranga disappeared. Imagine you have a dream like that and all of a sudden the dream's over. Immediately Narottama woke. It was like he was immediately going to pack his bags and go out the front door. But there was this, guard and his mother and father and these obstacles like that. So, in this way he wasn't able to fulfill his immediate desire to leave. And, he fell back to sleep again. And there he saw Gauranga on the banks of the Ganga chanting with his kirtan party back and forth. And he became even greater feelings of separation. He woke up again and he decided he must get out. He said, even those who are born blind, they suddenly become filled with vision by seeing Mahaprabhu. But I've seen him and I'm still trapped here. So, in this way, he began to very carefully plan his escape. Narottama's father one day got called away on business. After all, he was the magistrate. He had responsibilities. So he took his men and he left instructions, keep an eye on Narottama. So somehow or another, mother was next door or at some other residence, and the guard was a little inattentive, and Narottama saw his chance. He very quickly packed a very small bag, threw it over his shoulder, and shoo, right out the door. Immediately, he went. He stayed away from the main roads. He took all the back roads, went through the forest, passed through the hilly areas, went over the river beds and crossed all, just in this way, continued on, almost in disguise. Of course, he was disguised because he was rolling on the ground in ecstasy, covered in dirt. He was wearing simple cloth. He left all his opulent princely attire back at the house, turban wrapped around his head so nobody'd recognize him, and just going in this way, passing here, passing there. And people would see him, and they would think he was just, this boy is so beautiful. What is he doing wandering around like this? Please come to our house. Prasadam, please take some rest. No, he didn't want anything. They wanted to feed him all kinds of foods and take care of him, and in this way, began to look after him. He wanted nothing to do with it. He was just in a hurry to constantly get to Vrindavan very quickly, pass through all the main roads. It just describes who can understand how sincere Narottama's desire was that he wanted to get to Vrindavan. Everyone, when they would see him, they would say so many wonderful things. Oh, look at this boy. Even the golden champak flower is ashamed to be in the presence of this boy's face. Another one would say, look how long his hands are and how broad his chest is. And someone else would say, oh, who are the fortunate parents of this extraordinary boy with such beautiful feet? And someone else would say, oh, he cannot be an ordinary human being. He must be a demigod or the son of a very wonderful king. Another person would say, alas, how sad it is that such a young boy as this is apathetic towards family life and wandering about in this way. Someone else would say, oh, how is it that his parents can't even live with his separation? Someone else would call out, oh, fie to Providence! Have they no mercy for this boy that he's been dragged away from his family at such a young age? So in this way, everyone could tell that there was something not particularly right about this scenario, but Narottama continued on. He would not stay with anyone. He was smearing his body constantly in the dust of the ground and just desiring with great anticipation to get to the holy places. At last he arrived in Vrindavan. This is a nice thing for us to know. Many of you reside here, and I take your dust on my head, but for those of us that are coming, it's a nice mood to appreciate how he entered into Vrindavan. First of all, he went to Vishramghat in Mathura, and there he bathed in Jamuna and then took some little rest. In the solitude of the night, he then began a kirtan there of his own. At that time, one Vaishnava resident in Mathura came there carrying many different articles of Krishna Prasadam and very affectionately fed Narottama. Narottama asked him about the well-being of Braja, who all the different residents are. He asked him, how are the different Goswamis and how is this one and that one? Of course, with it describes a pierced heart filled with pain. The Brahmin had to inform him that Raghunath, Kashishwar, Rupa, Sanatan, they had all disappeared. They were no longer to be found in Vrindavan. Upon hearing this news, Narottama immediately fell to the ground, crying such pitiful tears of separation, rolling in the dust mixed with his tears, covering his body in that mud. He couldn't believe his great misfortune that he's come to Vrindavan. He will not get the association of these wonderful devotees. Striking his head, he called out, "Oh Kashishvar Pandit, oh Bhatta Raghunath, oh Rup Goswami, oh Sanatan Goswami." These tears continued to stream from his eyes, and this poor Brahmin took him on his lap and tried to console him. And they spent the night there discussing different topics of Krishna consciousness, pastimes of the Lord. Narottama now has his third dream. Late into the night, Narottama has a dream. And in that dream, Rupa, Sanatan, Kashishwar, Raghunath, they appear before him. Narottama falls at their feet, taking the dust of their feet on his head. He pleads with them, and they each reach down and pull him to their chest and embrace him. As they embrace him, they soak him with their own tears. In this way, they speak very nicely to Narottama, some of which, amazingly, the Brahmin could hear being said. How incredible is that? You're having a dream, and the person there next to you hears the people in your dream talking to you. This only happens in the spiritual realm. This is not material. So Narottama couldn't tolerate the disappearance of these individuals. He prayed to them, "Please be kind to me. Please give me your mercy." They encouraged him. They said, "Just continue to Vrindavan. All good fortune awaits you there. You have our full blessings." So then they disappeared. Narottama woke up. He pleaded to the Brahmin associate, "You must let me go. I must hurry to Vrindavan. I must go to Vrindavan." Narottama began to consider this and, "Please, just let me go. I'm dying to see the feet of the remaining Goswamis. Be merciful and help me fulfill my desires." So this Brahmin, he accompanied Narottama to the outskirts of Mathura. Of course, not the Mathura we know now. We were just there a couple of days ago, and it's quite a bustling metropolis, but a different Mathura that they were in then. So he accompanied until he could walk no further to the outskirts there. And he watched as Narottama continued off into the horizon, disappearing as he went towards Vrindavan. Narottama began to think as he approached Vrindavan, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has brought such a low and unqualified person as myself here to the sacred land of Vrindavan. He has sent me to the abode of mercy, Lokanath Goswami. Will Lokanath accept me as his servant? Will I be able to hold the lotus feet of Gopal Bhatta to my chest? Will I be able to serve Bhugarba Goswami and Jiva Goswami? Will they be kind and place their hand of mercy upon my head? Will they show their mercy to a worthless, poor man like myself? Srinivasacharya, he is there. He is the embodiment of love. Will he accept me as his friend? This was Narottam's mood. His mood wasn't, I'm in Vrindavan. No, his mood was one of great humility. That how can I come here? Will anyone even accept me as a devotee here? So as he thought in this way, his eyes filled with tears, and he cried greater and greater amounts of tears. And finally, he was so racked with this feeling he couldn't walk any further. So as night approached, he came to the outskirts of Vrindavan. For some apparent reason, in another place in Vrindavan, Srinivasacharya felt great waves of joy enter into his heart. So what could be going on? What is happening? He says, I bet I'm going to meet a very dear friend. So he immediately grabbed his associates and they began a kirtan. And they continued all throughout the night with this kirtan. Late in the night, he fell asleep. And Rupa Goswami appeared to him in a dream. He said, Oh, Srinivas, in the morning, you will meet your dear friend. You will meet Narottam. And then Rupa disappeared from his dream. Immediately upon waking, Srinivas gathered himself, took his morning bath, and rushed to the ashram, to the small hut of Jiva Goswami. And he revealed his dream to Jiva Goswami. Jiva Goswami was so happy to hear this news. They had all anxiously been awaiting for Narottam to arrive. They all knew Mahaprabhu had told them of his coming. Very excitedly, they just waited. Mahaprabhu said Narottam would come. He has told you about it. Now we are both eagerly awaiting for him. This will be the fulfillment of our long desire. So Jiva Goswami hurried off to the Govindaji temple to make arrangements. Srinivas returned to his home and waited. Suddenly, a person approached Srinivas's home. Srinivas, a prince has arrived in Vrindavan. He doesn't look like a prince, but we can tell by his very nature he's a prince. He's a young man with beautiful features, but his body is soaked with tears and covered with the dust of Vrindavan. I cannot describe the wonderful emotions that this man had observing his face. Crying incessantly, Jiva Goswami went quickly to find, Srinivas went quickly to find Narottam. Srinivas, upon seeing Narottam, became completely overwhelmed with joy. He ran to Narottam like a poor man that had received a priceless jewel he had hankered for his entire life, and he embraced Narottam. Srinivas expressed to Narottam through that embrace feelings we cannot even begin to imagine. Feelings that only the two of them understood, that only the deep friendship that they had sought after and hankered for was now being manifest. It's not possible to explain this. Everyone began to whisper about what uncommon friendship these two had, even though they had never met each other. Immediately, they became such close and fast friends. Krishna Pandit, the head priest of the Govindaji temple, immediately came and brought garlands worn by the deity and placed it on both of them. Of course, Krishna Das Pandit, he was a very famous pujari for Govindaji. And at the demise of Kashishwar Pandit, the care of Govindaji was placed in his responsibility. So Jiva Goswami sent message that they should come, and very quickly Narottam was brought to the Govindaji temple. And the garlands from the deity were placed on him. Jiva Goswami gave him the Charnamrita. Everyone was so happy to see Narottam, such great conversations of joy and satisfaction. Then Jiva Goswami said to him, he said, now, let us go to the ashram of Lokanath Goswami. Lokanath Goswami had been in Vrindavan for a very long time. Before any of the other Goswamis had been there, he had been there for a very long time. And he was living in the most humble of circumstances. I mean, very remote part of Vrindavan. very, very distant from anything else. Of course, now, the Vrindavan, some of us have had the fortune, we knew Vrindavan in the 70s, and it was different. Here at Krishna Balaram, you had to really go outskirts of Vrindavan to get to Krishna Balaram. They said to Prabhupada when he began to build the temple here, why are you building it way out there? There's nothing out there. Nothing. But we see now, everything is out here. So, and then of course, at that time, there was none of the development that we know now. It was truly just a forest. And some remote corner of it, Lokanath Goswami had a small little place that he stayed. So he was staying there, and Jiva Goswami took Narottam there. They found him alone, by himself, of course. He was always very much by himself, alone, chanting, suffering in great separation from the loss of Rupa and Sanatana Goswamis. Jiva Goswami bowed at his feet, instructed Narottam to do so. And then he spoke to Lokanath and began to introduce Narottam and explain a little bit about who Narottam was. Lokanath looked up and saw Narottam and began to float in an ocean of joy. Lokanath had been told by Mahaprabhu of the coming of Narottam and that he would be his disciple. Narottam had been told he would become the disciple of Lokanath. So they were expecting each other. And when Lokanath saw Narottam, his satisfaction and pleasure knew no bounds. But Lokanath had taken one vow. That vow was, I will never take any disciple. So Jiva introduced Narottam. Narottam said, I desire, please, only one thing in life, that you please accept me as your disciple. Lokanath said, I cannot do that. I've taken one strict vow in Vrindavan. I cannot accept you. There are so many others. You'll find someone. Can you imagine the pain in the heart of Narottam? The just intense burning of disappointment. Jiva Goswami and they then left. Jiva Goswami said, be patient. Possibly something will come. Narottam thought, no. I have to render some service. I have to give some service. Then by that service, I will become qualified to be the disciple of Lokanath. This is how, as a disciple, we should view. We should think that by service, we can get a spiritual master. Not that, okay, I'm here, who wants me as their disciple? Not like that. Who will qualify themselves to be a disciple? So in this way, he began to think, Lokanath is staying way out there. He takes no service from anyone. He has no facilities. But he noticed that Lokanath, his ashram was here, but he would go a bit distant over there to take care of nature's business. That business we don't discuss in polite company, but that we all have to deal with. We all have this funky material body. So even, if you manifest a form in this world, even if it's a divine form for the Leela of the Lord, that happens. So in this way, he would go to that place and do his business. And then Narottam would come along. He got himself a little bucket of water and a little straw broom, and he would go there. And after Narottam finished his business, he'd sweep everything down, put some cow dung down around, clean it all down, wash it all down, make it all nice and neat. Okay. And he would go. And Lokanath was an old man. He was quite elderly. A little bit, becoming disabled, so to speak. But he wasn't a fool. 2-3 days of this, he notices, I come here every day and this place is getting cleaned. Somebody is rendering service to me. I have taken a vow not to accept service. Who is doing this? So one morning he went there and he took care of business, and then he went down the path, but quickly darted behind a bush and waited. Narottam came along, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Bo. He was so happy. He was so happy. He was doing the service for his guru. And immediately Lokanath jumped out. Aha! I caught you. I told you not to give me any service. I could not accept you as my disciple. What do you think you're doing? Narottam folded his hands and he bowed his head. He said, "Oh Goswami," he said, "just as a young girl fixes her mind on one man to be her husband and cannot be dissuaded in any way, I have fixed my mind on your lotus feet as my spiritual master, and I will not give that desire up." All right, anyway, you can continue the service, but don't think this is going to lead to anything. So one morning, Narottam finished his little service. Lokanath called him and said, "Naro, the strength of your vow, you have broken my vow. I will be honored to accept you as my disciple." So in this way, Jiva Goswami arranged big festival, initiation. Everything took place. Lokanath Goswami gave the holy name to Narottam, and in this way he satisfied his deep desire. Regularly he would take care of, bringing bath water and cleaning the area for Lokanath like that. In this way, he solidified by service his relationship with his spiritual master. Of course, this is an important thing to all of us, that our relationship with our spiritual master is not just a formal, okay, here are your beads, here's your name, and okay, that's good. We have to constantly, always be engaged in service. Everything we do, we should be thinking, I'm doing as a service for my spiritual master. Even if our spiritual master has departed from our presence, he has not departed from our heart. He has not departed from that spiritual relationship we have. And therefore, our mood should always be that we are his servant, and everything we do is for his satisfaction. A tough order as we get older and get families and get businesses and jobs and all the distractions of this world. Nonetheless, our responsibility. So Jiva Goswami continued taking him around, introducing him to all the different personalities. He took him to Gopal Bhatta Goswami. Gopal Bhatta also had a quiet place, sitting in separation from Rupa and Sanatan. And, there's one very nice prayer. It says, "I worship Sri Gopal Bhatta Goswami, whose heart is filled with love for Sanatan and Rupa and the friendship they had. He who worships them is able to attain mercy of Gopal Bhatta Goswami. I worship that Gopal Bhatta whose life and soul is Radharamanji." So Jiva Goswami bowed at the feet of Gopal Bhatta Goswami and brought Narottam forward in it. Demigods are satisfied. Wonderful. Well, I hope that's all he's going to send down. All right, go. Thank you. So in this way, he introduced him to Gopal Bhatta Goswami, and Gopal Bhatta Goswami was so satisfied